At the beginning of my career with the Reissue, we sort of published a manifesto. What do we want to do? What are our objectives? What are our aims? And why are we and how are we different from other ensembles? And I think this is a very important thing to talk about, because essentially this definition of an aim we've kept alive now since 1979. The idea was that we would champion French music. We would champion the underdog, let's say the people who had been forgotten, like Charpentier, or like Michel Lambert, or the Moulinié brothers. And we would also put into question the way people were playing music that was better known. It could be Lully, it could be Monteverdi, it could be, and these were important considerations. I chose the Etienne Moulinié. There are two. There's Antoine and Etienne, two brothers, because their music is of an enormously high quality, and it was completely and utterly unknown. So much unknown that I would spend time with my colleagues like Dominique Wyss and others at the Bibliothèque Nationale, transcribing this music, which essentially hadn't been performed or sung, played for 300 years. I had been looking at Moulinié, the air de cour, the polyphonic air de cour, as well as his extraordinary religious music for a number of years. And I said to myself, fine, amongst the earliest recordings, the first recordings that I want to do with my ensemble, the Reissue, we're going to do Moulinié. And indeed we did. Who are they? Honest, brilliant composers. They worked essentially for the brother of Louis XIII, that's to say the father of Le Roi Soleil. This fellow was called Gaston d'Orléans, and he was, of all the Bourbons, along with his brother the king, certainly the most musical of the royal family. Had a very good establishment, musical establishment in Blois, and the Moulinié brothers worked for him for a number of years. It was a fascinating moment, actually, in French history, because the wars of religion were still coming, but they were still present, they're coming to an end. He could write brilliantly in both French and in Latin. It was also a very interesting musical period for me, because again, it was totally unknown. Not only the composers like Moulinié or Boesset or Guédon, but the entire period, culturally speaking, of Louis XIII was something which was, very much eclipsed by what was happening afterwards with the court of Louis XIV. Well, you don't have to be in a church to sing religious music, obviously. The best and the most important religious music was conceived as to be sung in a religious environment. That's to say, a church, a cathedral, a basilica, a convent, a monastery. But there's other music as well. I mean, house music, as the Germans call it, devotional music that could be sung by a family or could be sung by a small group of people in a non-religious, non-liturgical context was obviously very present from essentially from the time that Christianity was born, 2,000 years ago. You have devotional music that can be sung in the household, as was this, or amongst a small group of amateurs, or a group of professionals, but singing perhaps for their own enjoyment. One forgets as well that this music was published. which means it was bought to be sung, not only by professionals, but by amateurs. The impact, the importance of published music can't be overestimated. It's very important. And this music is a great deal of music of the 17th century and the 18th century was designed to be bought and sung, not by professionals, but by amateurs. Early music, obviously, music before the end of the 18th century, oftentimes has to be deciphered and treated in a different way than a score, let's say, of Tchaikovsky or Massenet or Rossini. The Moulinié in question was published first in separate parts. In other words, you don't have a complete score. And when I was interested in this, I suddenly discovered, to my great disappointment, that one of the 5 parts was missing. It had probably been stolen from the Bibliothèque Nationale during the war. God knows how or why. But by an enormous stroke of good luck, we found this particular collection of pieces in the King's Library, transcribed many, many years afterwards, at the end of the 17th century, by Philidor, the king's musician, his librarian, where all of the parts were present, which allowed us essentially to make a new edition. In other words, there was no edition that one could buy, and there was no edition that we could simply even get from the library that was complete, you see. So there was essentially the first task was to actually create the score. After that, it's a question of many things. Was it accompanied? Is there a basse continue? Was it sung a cappella? How many singers were singing this? Was it a single voice on a part? What kind of French does one use, you know? Does this music need to be ornamented? Does it need to have essentially something done to it, such as to make it come alive, other than just singing it off the page? Yes. So this was a kind of a detective story in many ways.